Hey, how's it going everyone? We're here with the brand new release from Tamashii Nations for the S.H Monsterarts line, and well, as you can tell from the in-depth physics on the box, we are with the Godzilla singular point Godzilla SP Godzilla Ultima release. Yeah, this is pretty insane for a figure, so I'm looking forward to popping out and getting a good look at him, but first we'll take a look at the box. In Japan, this was a Tamashii Web exclusive, so therefore you had to buy it from Premium Bandai. So you've got the Tamashii Web logo on the front here, along with the Tamashii Nations quality seal down here. So if you are new to the Monsterarts line, this is something to keep an eye out for new releases. It is one way to kind of tell if a figure is legit or not. And then we've got the Tamashii Bandai logos down there as well. But man, straight away the art on this, it looks amazing. You have a figure itself, Godzilla Ultima in Japanese and English, and then the nice kind of swirly mist from the show. If you haven't watched the show, I do recommend it. It's one of those weird ones where you may not like it from the get-go, but it does grow on you. And if you're a bit on the fence, just have it as a background watch, that we can at least see the cool monster fights. But anyway, let's swing around to the back here. We've got a nice silhouette here of Godzilla Ultima, again with the logo. And then on the left here we've got some nice pictures showcasing the features and different poses he comes with. And he also does come with a mini Jet Jaguar as well. Now speaking of Jet Jaguar, he is coming for the Monsterarts line, which will scale with this guy. And I believe from memory that is coming February or March 2022. He is currently up for pre-order on Premium Bandai in Japan. For other new releases though, today Tamashii Nations did just finally drop the details for the Final Wars 04 Godzilla and the Wicked free set for Hidora. Now Hidora is a Premium Bandai release like this one, so if you are in a country that doesn't have Premium Bandai, I was speaking to Hobby Genki earlier today and they said they will be putting that up for pre-order tomorrow hopefully, so keep an eye out for their website if you want to import from Japan. Anyway, let's take this guy out and get a closer look at his detailing, then we can go into articulation. Okay, we've got the big boy out of his packaging now. I do have the one side part over here still sealed, and this has the additional head with the wide mouth open, along with the Jet Jaguar and the stands for them. Now we'll have a closer look at this a bit later in the video, but for now we'll focus on Ultima himself. And yeah, unfortunately he's probably a bit too big to fit on the turntable I have, so we just have to kind of swivel him around the old fashioned way for this. But first up, first impressions, that tail is insane. Extremely long, and from the feel of it, it's really solid, and the joints feel really nice on it too, so we can have a bit of a closer look at that when we go over the articulation. But for a bit more about the actual finish, it's got a nice matte finish, and it feels really nice actually. The overall plastic feels really solid. So far, well, I haven't had too much play around with the joints. Everything does feel pretty solid and smooth. Though out of the box, the hands did pop off, but I've had, yeah, this one here is a little bit loose on the joints there, on the wrist. So that is one thing to keep an eye out for when you are taking it out of the box, as these might have popped off, but they do go back on without too much trouble. The paint finish on the spine looks absolutely insane. It's got the lovely kind of irony blood red colour going through the spine there, with the fins itself being that lovely light grey colour. And there is shading on the top spine here as well, which is great since it does give you that extra depth. The spine down here, a little bit of a paint bleed. I'm not sure if it's intentional to blend it in, give it a bit more shading, or it just could be straight up paint bleed. A bit hard to tell, but the good thing is, either way it does look nice. The grey itself throughout the whole body does seem to be the same. I don't see too much of a difference there. Might be a bit hard to see on the camera here, but it does have some lighter grey in the centre as well, and there is that one silver line going straight down, so you do get that contrast there, which is also nice. It does have nice sculpting and definition in the, I guess, abs, coming down through the centre part of his body before it splits off into his tail scales. For the face here, the eyes look pretty similar. They've got a nice kind of a deep yellow pupil with a slight white highlight around the side of it before going into a black eye. The teeth look like they're painted really well. Got all the detailing on the inside of the mouth as well, which might be a little bit hard to see here. Try and tilt it a little bit. So looking at the very back of the mouth, you do see some of the grey plastic coming through though, depending on the angle you have them at. Though from a normal perspective, it doesn't really cause any issues. And there is also some nice sort of separation and colours around his front and side teeth. Overall, I think that part's looking really nice. And yeah, same with the inner jaw there as well. Seems like there is a little bit of extra colouring, and it opens pretty wide. So yeah, we'll pop the other head on the body a bit later. The painting on the claws is nice as well. It seems like it's kind of a creamy white colour painted over the darkness, so you do get some of those highlights in the centre grooves there as well. And yeah, I think overall that's looking quite nice, and it's the same colour used for his front claws there too. So yeah, so far man, the paint job, the sculpting, everything like that is looking really nice. And just a bit about his overall design. If you're not a fan of this design, if you think he's got too much booty, kind of a weird face, and you haven't watched the show, I highly recommend watching it, because at least for me, when I first saw this design, I wasn't a fan until I saw the show. I think that the animation style that they used really does go well with the design for the Godzilla here. They kind of match up together extremely well, and after seeing the show, I grew to love this design. So yeah, definitely check it out if you're still on the fence for the Ultimate design here. Starting from his head, the main joint is a little bit deeper down into his neck, and that's got a few mil of articulation either way. Now generally with these figures, the more that you use them, the kind of looser and freer their movement will become, so you do gain a bit more articulation later on, depending on the joint. So this is straight out of a box, so maybe still be a bit stiff in some areas. But overall his head isn't too bad. You do have some decent tilt action going on there too. For the mouth, this is the default one, and yeah, it opens up decently far, but to get that extremely wide mouth look, we do have to change heads, which we will do a little bit later. There is a single joint just above his shoulders here, and he does have a little bit of motion, a little bit up and down, not too much, and some left to right. So this upper body here is pretty limited so far in terms of articulation. It's kind of similar to most other Godzilla figures in that center area, where you'll have maybe 1 or 2 millimeters of movement per joint, and then they kind of all combine to give you greater motion. But I think due to his smaller design in the torso, it is a bit limited compared to some other figures. Moving down, he's got not much movement in the center there. So I'd say his top body here, the main joint is one above his shoulders. And speaking of shoulders, let's check these out. Okay, so you've got the main big joint here, which will kind of swivel up and down. You can kind of get up by a few mil and it swivels up and around, but the armor here will kind of stop that motion going too far. The next joint underneath, not about 2 mil forward and back, but it's mostly for the tilting action. And then his elbow is pretty nice actually. That's one part that I generally kind of complain about with these figures, is the elbow articulation, but this guy's, yeah, decently good actually. At least a lot better than previous figures, but I guess he does have a lot larger arms compared to some Godzilla designs. For his wrist, he's got really good articulation there. That tilts back and forward really well, and then it can swivel around freely. Now these can pop off quite easily, so do be careful with those wrist joints. But yeah, that's both hands, extremely nice motion there. So I think overall, with the three main joints combined, you do get a decent range of articulation for the arm region, especially compared to some other figures. Moving down now to his thunder thighs, going in and out, you've got a decent range of motion going up and down. Actually, you can almost do splits going that way, which is really cool. And for the swivel motion, let's see, yeah, these are actually really good. You can, if I force it, I reckon I could go all the way around, but it does stop a little bit there just since they are a slight oval design. Okay, I've just pushed him back here a little bit more so you can get a better look at that articulation. It's pretty insane with his legs. As I was mentioning before, they can basically do a full 360. It's just the slight oval design which will stop them. Yeah, these are really nice. So into the knee here, you've got a decent range of motion as well. Yeah, so far I'm loving the lower body of this figure. It definitely makes up for the limited torso region. You've also got this kind of hind claw, and you've got a little bit of motion there, not too much, but a few millimeters of articulation forward back, and then you can swivel on that joint as well. And then you've got your foot as well, which has a little bit of motion, nothing too major though, just a few millimeters either side. Moving on to my favourite part of these figures, and that is the tail. And that's insane. It's got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 points of articulation that I can quickly count there, and it feels insanely nice. Everything moves well. It's all held in extremely tight, so nothing's too loose despite the heavy weight of the figure. And as you can see, each one of these points can articulate and bend and hold its shape extremely well. The fact that you can swivel his tail all the way around and you can bite onto the tip, that's insane. Look at that, it really reminds me of the Aliens 3 poster, which is really cool. I recently did a photo recreating that with Frieza from Dragon Ball Z, so I think I might have to do another one using this figure. The other thing it kind of reminds me of is the Head Order movie, the Flying Godzilla pose, so that could be quite a fun photo recreation for something to do once you get Head Order. So now that we've checked out his articulation, let's move on to the other accessories he does come with. And this head is looking nice. You can see his three throats. I'm not quite sure what you would call them, but I'm pretty sure that's the part where his special attack comes out of. And you can see all those menacing teeth. That looks really cool. You've got a little bit of an overlap and a little bit messy sculpting on the inner mouth on the top for the inner teeth, but the outside teeth are looking pretty nice. The eyes and the sculpting is not too bad either. The colouring and shading on the top is nice as well. So yeah, let's pop off the current head and put this one on and see what it looks like. That should pop right off. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so the inner, I guess, ring here, that's kind of soft plastic. That's quite nice to see. And line that with the peg and that should just pop straight on. Okay, so I got the head on now, and yeah, that looks really cool. I really wish he came with that Ki Blast attack now. Hopefully someone will make a really cool custom one. But yeah, I think with him standing there with a massive ring and the Ki Blast coming out, that would just be absolutely fantastic to have on a display, especially once we get Jet Jaguar early next year. Moving on to the next little bit of accessories we've got the final form Jet Jaguar with his pole arm, and then the first version that we see, the little robot down there. And yeah, these look really nice. It'd be pretty cool if they became painted with red, but I'm sure some talented people out there will be doing their own custom paint jobs on these. But as they're just a little bit tiny accessories, I think it is pretty cool. For a quick size comparison, I do have a Tommy Tech Engage, so it's 1/150th scale person from the train sets here. And yeah, I feel like this is almost the right scale with these guys. The person might be a little bit on the big side, but if you imagine them kind of sitting down, it could be about the right size to go on the back of the Jet Jaguar there. So if you've got some cool 1/50th scale train sets or dioramas for your Godzilla figures, I think yeah, these guys could look pretty cool nestled in there in the displays. Jumping straight into a size comparison now, we've got the Shin Godzilla Awakening version on the left, we've got the 2019 King of the Monsters Godzilla on the right, and in the centre we've got our man himself, Godzilla Ultima. Now looking at these guys all side by side, you can obviously tell the 2019 one is a lot slender, smaller figure, whereas I'm actually quite surprised the Shin Godzilla and the Ultima are actually pretty similar in size, a lot more than what I was expecting. Obviously you've got the higher thighs and the thunder legs here on Ultima himself, but the tails, not too much difference between these two. We'll get a closer look at those in a moment, but just for the overall height comparison, I feel like the Shin Godzilla does kind of stand a bit higher than the Ultima. Now obviously the height will vary quite a bit depending on how you pose the legs, but in a pretty generic neutral posing, I do feel the Shin Godzilla does stand a little bit taller. Still probably my favourite figure for the Articulation, because that is just absolutely insane. I wish they'd do that for all figures. That should be the gold standard right here. Anyway, I'll move the 19 off to the side and we can get a closer look at these tails. So we've got the Shin Godzilla in front, Ultima at the back, and let's lay these tails out there, starting at about the same position. So when this is laid out flat, there we go. That's just off the camera, but I will get a measuring tape in a moment to get the exact sizing of these. Oh, Ultima is definitely longer. So let's find out exactly from base to tip. Let's go from just underneath the tail all the way down. You're looking at about 38.5, almost 39 centimeters for Shin. And for Ultima, we're looking at about 46 centimeters. So from the non-scientific test, you're looking at about 7 centimeters longer for the Ultima. So yeah, surprisingly quite a bit further down. I guess the Shin one does kind of end abruptly with that kind of demonic stubby tip there, whereas the Ultima one does go down to a fine point. So that brings us to the pros and cons of this release. Straight up with the pros, I absolutely love that tail. As I said before, the tails is one of my favourite part of these figures, but the articulation, I feel, is extremely smooth. I like how it's really chunky for the most part, and you can kind of get it curved all the way up and around, and it can curve all the way underneath him as well. I really hope we kind of get a new Mechagodzilla with that design for Kiryu, just because it would look absolutely amazing. I guess maybe that's what they're going for with the Chogoken figure that they just showed off in Japan. Anyway, the other pros, the finish, the paint job on the spines, I absolutely love the colours. The kind of bronzy, irony blood colour there looks really nice, and it fits the theme for the show if you have seen it. The face design, I know there's a few comments going around online about kind of looking a bit skewed. I feel like in person it doesn't look too bad. I think this face looks a bit nicer than the other one in terms of the shapes of the eyes. But overall both I think are looking really nice, and the teeth on this one especially looking very clean and sharp. I like the articulation in the elbows and especially on the legs here. Extremely wide range of articulation that way, and then the swivel as well, as we saw earlier, is pretty insane. So everything on that part is really nice. Now jumping into the cons, the joints on the wrists are pretty, not loose, but they do come off easy. It kind of reminds me of some of the Biollante tentacles. I feel like maybe if the peg was a little bit longer, or had a bit more space to connect to the wrists, and on the hands themselves it could be a bit better. Now in saying that, they are on there, they are attached, so it's not a huge con, but it's just something to keep in mind. The other main con is the center torso articulation is very limited. I would have liked to seen a bit more, especially something along the lines of the Shin Godzilla, which can bend all the way down. I mean, it doesn't have to be that extreme, but a bit more of a range there would be nice. Now, after playing with this guy a bit more, the head is a bit looser than earlier, so those joints are pretty stiff out of the box. So it isn't horrible, but I would have liked to seen a bit more articulation, mainly in that mid section. But yeah, that is basically for the pros and cons. Should you buy, shouldn't you buy? I reckon he's should buy, especially if you've seen SP and you enjoyed the show. Must have, especially to go with Jet Jaguar, who is coming later. Now I know a lot of people are a bit disappointed that it's not the original Jet Jaguar, so hopefully they will release him for the fans that want him. But for the meantime, I think these two are going to look absolutely fantastic on the shelf. That does remind me though, there is one more con, and that is no atomic breath blast. I feel like every figure should come with an attack blast, some type of rubble effect or anything along those lines. Always adds a bit more, or a fun feature to the figures. But yeah, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this figure and about the show itself in general. And yeah, if you enjoyed the video, please do like and subscribe. And next month we will be having the Godzilla vs Kong Mecha Godzilla. After that we'll have the King of the Monsters King Ghidorah special color version. Then, man, we've got heaps of releases actually. After that will be Jet Jaguar from SP, then the Final Wars Godzilla, then Head Order set, and after that, who knows. But it seems like they're ramping up the Monsterarts line, which is really cool for all the fans of the line and Godzilla figures. And if you do want to see more photos of this guy, I will be taking a bunch this weekend and then posting on Instagram, which is linked below, so you can keep an eye out on that page for some close-up photos of this figure. Anyway, again, thank you very much for watching. Cheers!